Live, it'll
Oh,
be
never mind.
taller.
There we go.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay. Then.
Kayla's going.
Well.
I can't. Well, I'm just gonna ignore that.
Yeah.
Let me. Okay, I'm having problems. Okay, just keep it going. I'm just gonna have to text Kayla that I cannot talk right now. Okay. Sorry then.
What?
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 My phone broke.
Where?
Right here. Right there.
The case or your glass?
Okay, never mind. Oh my god, it scared me.
Okay, we're going live.
Okay, go. I'm just texting Kayla.
Okay. This. And we transition to our faces. There we go. Now we should be live now. Are we showing up there?
I'm looking for it.
We're experimenting again with new equipment, so we'll see how it works this time. Part of the new equipment is an old notebook computer, and also we have a new microphone, which is supposed to give us better audio quality than what we have. This is set up as an omnidirectional, so it should pick up those two people just as well as it picks up me. So we shall see.
Okay.
Better audio quality than what we have. This
Just
is
gotta
set up
find
as
the.
an omnidirectional, so it should pick up.
Where's the sound?
Got this thing on the side, you know, nothing else.
All right.
So we shall see.
I was just
Have
looking
trouble
for the
with this every
mute.
week.
Be nice.
Okay, today's episode of Berkeley is Science and Religion, and we have once again my wife Ruth and my youngest daughter Brittany.
Hello.
And so I think we are ready. Everything seems to be okay.
I'm in the process of inviting everybody on my. They don't let you just invite everybody.
No?
So I'm just
You have
having
to
to
go
click
through
through a single person.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Perhaps we
But
can
then
find
we'll
a better
get
way
more
of doing it
viewership.
sometime.
So that's why I'm looking down and playing with my phone. I'm not texting my friends.
Okay.
I'm inviting folks.
You're inviting your friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody on your friends list?
Yeah, you just
Pretty
go
much
down.
you just go
yeah.
through
Oh
the
my
list
gosh.
and
How much
invite.
friends do you have on there?
Like
Okay.
600 something.
So she's gonna be
no.
busy for a while.
Yeah.
I
The-
swear I thought I broke my phone.
Okay, the question that we have to ask when we think about science and religion. When I was at UCLA many years ago, we had a guest lecturer that came to one of our classes. His last name was Sojan. I can't remember what his first name was. He was from Italy. He came all the way to UCLA to give the guest lecture. He was friends with our professor, Stanislav Zegert. And I actually had already was aware of this individual because I had gotten a copy of his commentary on Judges, which, as I recall, is what we were using for that class that year. So anyway, it was quite nice. But one of the things he mentioned at the beginning was that it's a methodological error to mix the religious experience and the scientific experience. As he would say, one cannot ask of religious evidence the same things that one would ask of scientific evidence. And there is a certain amount of truth to that. I mean, if you think in terms of, you know, anything that people do, what you do at your job is not the same as what you do at home. If we're discussing the Dodgers, it's going to be different than a discussion of nuclear physics. Different hobbies have different vocabulary, different ways of doing things. We compartmentalize our world in various ways. Now the problem, of course, and so when we're thinking in terms of religion, there are different things that religion deals with than what science deals with. But there may also be a certain amount of overlap, and that's the question, how much overlap. Now, some people are of the opinion that religion is, by its nature, completely unscientific, and they might even argue that science has disproven religion. Of course, the guest lecturer that I saw, Sogan, would disagree with that. He would simply say that religion and science are dealing with different things. But there's questions that we can ask. For instance, I have here a jar of candy that I keep in my office here at the church.
He likes to keep it hidden. I eat
From
it.
us.
Yeah,
Yep.
I keep it hidden from people. Though I do let everybody know it's there. But the fact that it's out of sight means that people generally don't.
Outside
for
our
it.
mind.
Yeah, it's outside, out of mind. So, when you look at this jar, you see there's candy in it, and you don't really know how much there is. Now, the question is, when we think about God, well, let me continue. What's your favorite?
You
The
should be
clean
asking
words.
her that.
No, you can tell me what your favorite
I don't know
song
what
is.
my favorite song is.
You don't have a
I-
favorite song?
I don't generally pick my favorite song because I like
Is
a
your-
whole bunch of artists.
Okay, is there a favorite artist that you have?
I again can't really name
Okay,
one
do you have a
person.
favorite artist?
It's hard when you love music so much.
Yes,
That you
well, I
can't
have-
pick.
I have a lot of favorite artists, but I'll pick one just for the sake of argument. So I'll just say the Bee Gees.
Okay, you like the Bee Gees.
I do.
Now, there will be other people, perhaps some of the people that you're inviting to this, that would say they hate the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees are horrible.
A lot of people
A
will.
lot of people will disagree with your choice. Is the fact that other people disagree with your choice, does that invalidate your choice, your belief
No,
about the Bee Gees?
just means I'm unpopular.
Okay. Now, when we think in terms of the number of pieces of candy that are in here, and if I were to ask you to guess how many pieces of candy are in here, what might you say?
120.
Okay. What do you think?
I think I'm just gonna count it out. I'm kidding.
No, you could count it out.
I know there's like 4 less than there were because she ate them.
Yes.
1,
2.
Okay, do it to yourself. You tell us after you're done. The issue of religion is whether or not religious belief is akin to asking someone what their favorite song is, or whether it's akin to guessing the number of pieces of candy in a candy jar. With the number of pieces of candy in a candy jar, there is a wrong answer, many wrong answers, and only one right answer. With the favorite song, it's impolite to say that you're wrong because you like the Bee Gees. Now, we may think you're wrong, we may disagree with you, but it's your opinion, and it's as equally valid as somebody else who thinks that Nickelback is wonderful. There's one person out there, probably.
Yes. Larissa.
Okay, there you go.
do I count this as 1?
Yes, one package.
Okay.
It's
So,
always good to give the kid a job.
yes. So anyway, the question is, when we think in terms of God, is a person's opinion about God more like a favorite song, or is it more like determining the number of pieces of candy in a candy jar? What do you think?
Well, a lot of people would probably say opinion, but I would say it's more like how many pieces of candy in a candy jar, because people think that, some people, not everybody, believe that faith or having a belief system is just that, it's your opinion. But when it's proven time and time again, it is a fact.
Yeah. Well, see, there's
So-
an actual number of pieces of candy here, and so the question then comes down. to
But
this.
can you find God in a laboratory? Probably not.
Well, yeah, it's unlikely. See, we'll get to this eventually, but
There are 55 pieces in here.
okay.
Oh,
So
that's
you
way
were
off.
here. Yes.
It was seriously way off.
Seriously off.
And now I'm taking one.
Okay, so now there's 54.
I'm not a mathematician, I will add.
Okay. The question then is along these lines, does God actually exist? That is he as real as this microphone, as my cup of coffee, as you or I? If he is, then you can say statements about him that are true, or you could say statements about him that are false. Just like I could say that Brittany here is a person that enjoys Nickelback, and she enjoys consuming broccoli in vast quantities. and
I like
all,
broccoli and cheese.
and see, all those things are untrue. My guesses, my opinion.
Nickelback
regarding-
isn't that bad.
Oh.
What?
um,
What's so wrong about Nickelback?
people like to pick on Nickelback.
Well, no, duh. No, everybody wants to pick on everybody.
Anyway, but if God is objectively real as you or I, then there are true statements we can say about him and false statements about him. And it's not just a matter of opinion or what you would like to be so. That is, if God is not objectively real, then anything we say about him, it's just whatever we feel like making up. Is if God is not objectively real, then I could say that I think God is a baked potato that I keep under my bed.
What the?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a silly notion, but
Who gives a freaking potato underneath their bed? That's
That's not the
Classic.
point.
classic God.
I know, I'm just
But
saying.
if God is that subjective, then that is as equally valid as, say, Pastafarianism, which believes that God is this noodly spaghetti monster. So,
You always get the silly side of me, so just like.
yeah, well, I'm trying to be silly to some extent. And so how do we find out about God, then would be the question. Now, it's unlikely that he's going to sit for a series of experiments that we might run. You're still going through that,
I
aren't you?
am. I'm listening.
I need to
Okay,
move
well,
that a little bit.
I don't want to just do all the talking. What?
I know.
I need to move that a little bit because it's like kind
Why?
Just leave it.
I'll
You're
just
fine.
leave it.
Just,
You're fine.
just scoot over a little bit. We need to get on with the topic.
Okay, come on.
Stop getting distracted.
That is, if God is real as a chair, piece of chocolate food that I had for lunch, then we can make true statements about him. But then the question becomes, how do we find out about God? So how would we learn about God?
Well,
He's real.
he revealed himself in Scripture. That's
Well,
the
that's an
first.
assumption that we make. As
Read about
Christians.
Okay, well, it looks like it's stuck now, so that's all it's going to let me do.
Okay.
I guess I reached my max invites.
Ah.
So, so my friend Kim said she can hear us, and she said her favorite artist is Vince Gill.
Ah.
Who's
okay.
that?
Oh, and Tony and Vanessa are clapping for us.
Ah, how nice of them.
So anyway, okay, now I've stopped inviting, so now I'm here.
So now you're here
Yes.
and can participate?
Yes.
So I don't have to try to talk all by
Well,
myself?
we
Right.
were talking too.
Yes, you and I were
Yes.
talking too.
And I
but
talked a little bit.
talk a little.
Okay, so proving that God is real. Well, I think if you look at like people like Josh,
Robin.
no, off the
Keep
singer
in with
thing.
the music thing. Huh?
No, Josh, that guy that wrote the book,
McDowell.
Evidence. Yeah, Josh McDowell, and then the Chicago Sun-Times journalist that was trying to prove that there's no God, and they both found out that God was real through trying to prove that he doesn't exist.
Mhm.
So obviously you can prove there is a God
Well,
if
at
you're
least
true, if you're truly searching for truth. If you I mean, they went through a series of questions and then found that their questions didn't prove there was no God. It actually, the answers to their questions actually proved that there was a God. So anyway, so it can be done. I'm just not the person that asked that particular type of question. I'm always astounded when I look at like the movie that they made about him. What was that movie called? Oh, The Case for Christ, which is currently on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's just really good how he went through. His wife became a believer, and he was like, "No, there's no God," and all that. And it's actually quite intriguing. How
Wait, that movie that we watched?
Yeah, the Case for Christ.
Yeah, that was a really good movie. I'd suggest you guys to watch that. It's on Netflix, right?
I just said that. Yeah.
Oh.
Where were you?
Apparently elsewhere.
I was coughing and getting myself
Okay.
to not cough so much.
She's on a time delay.
But no, it's a really good movie. Go
Yeah.
watch it.
So I would argue that if you're truly looking for truth, and even if you believe there's no God and you're trying to disprove that there's a God, that God will lead you to the evidence that shows that he exists.
Okay. Does the Bible offer proofs for the existence of God?
I don't know how to answer that.
Does the Bible deal with philosophical arguments for does God exist or not?
No, because the presumption when you read the Bible is that there is a God.
Right, it's the presumption.
Right.
It is our belief in God fundamentally is axiomatic. It is, it's an assumption that we make.
Mm-hmm.
It is, we talked before on this broadcast about axioms, and there are certain axioms that underlie Western civilization. For instance, we believe that the external universe actually exists. We believe that our senses provide an accurate picture of that universe, all things being equal, if we're not drunk or sick or whatever. It is, we don't accept the notion of, say, what you see in the Matrix, or brains and vats being fed electric stimulation from the outside, whatever a mad scientist decides to give us. But there's no way of disproving that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we assume that this is real. We assume that cause and effect are operative. We assume the laws of the logic is workable. And as Christians, as people that believe in God, we assume the existence of God. The Bible assumes the existence of God, does not try to prove that God exists. And that can be discomforting. It is, we have all sorts of philosophical explanations to try to demonstrate the existence of God. For instance, the argument of first cause.
Mm-hmm.
It is, everything has a cause. It is, the reason that I've got coffee in my cup is because I used the Keurig and made myself some coffee. There's a cause for that.
My friend of mine, Catherine, she joined the conversation and said, yes, there is a God. He's not dead. I've seen miracles only God can do. And that's when I was saying about the search for truth. If you're truly seeking God, he will reveal himself to you. And that is one of the ways that he can reveal himself. So, by the way, I just saw that movie, God's Not Dead. It was good. I think there were better ones out. I think there are better ones out there, but that it was good. But that's on Netflix also. So
We're an advertisement for Netflix now.
yes. So they need to pay us money.
Yeah, Netflix, you need to pay us some big bucks.
So
we're gonna be
Yeah, all
hinting at
three people
Netflix
that are
all day.
watching us.
but I think the presumption is there even when something miraculous happens. The people that don't believe in God will use it to discount God. It's a hard thing to do, but if you're a believer or if you're truly seeking the truth, then you'll recognize it as as things that God can do.
Okay, so is there a
God
conflict
does.
between science and religion?
Well, people like to think that if we find out too many things that we won't, that it precludes the need for God. And I think
Why?
that that's wrong. Well, because, okay, so in more primitive thought, you have gods for things you don't understand. Like you don't understand why volcanoes erupt. So you throw virgins into it to make it stop erupting. But we now
And
know
you
from
say
science.
that God is the one that made it happen.
Right, the god of the volcano is making it happen. We have to appease that god, so we're going to throw some virgins in there, and to appease that god. And when in fact it's because there's hot molten magma below the surface of the ground, and sometimes it comes out. So science has proven that there are no volcano gods, and they're the god of the sea, and the god, those are gods
You mean Aquaman?
people that we were actually in school this week watching a video. We watched the series of videos called A Kid Explains History,
Mhm.
and he talks a little bit about religion, and he explains polytheism and how monotheism started. And he's really quite good, this kid. There's a few things that I don't like he doesn't pluralize women correctly. He calls more than one woman, he still calls it woman. So, and I've messaged them many times it needs to be pronounced women, because I always have to tell my kids how to pronounce it. But anyway, but he talks about with polytheism that there's a lot of the religion polytheistic, because those are gods you can relate to. That's the stuff that's here in the material world. And I think that Paul does a really good job of, when he's on Mars Hill, of saying, okay, you've got the God of this and the God of that and the God of that, but I see here that you have an unknown God. Let me explain the unknown God to you. And it's been used in other cultures as well. The Eternity in Their Hearts book comes to mind, where the missionary comes to the people and says, okay, you believe in all of these things. Let me show you the one true God. And people don't, more primitive peoples don't reach out to that God because they can't understand him, and it's not something in the material world. And so that's why Paul and other missionaries came to these people and said, let me explain the one true God to you. And there's not a God of the volcano and a God of the ocean and a God of the thunder. There's a God. And anyway, all that to say that a lot of people think that if we prove too many things in science that God goes away. And
That's because people tend to believe that if we can't understand it,
it must
we
be
can't
God,
explain
right?
it, then we will say God did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we can explain it and it does make sense to us, then somehow God wasn't actually there to begin
And it
with.
was science.
Like, for example, someone who, like my mother has ovarian cancer right now. And so if God were just to poof, it's all gone. Wow, that's a miracle. God did that. But God works through the chemotherapy, the hysterectomy, and she probably won't have to have radiation, and all those things to do that miracle of healing her. So just because she's healed through medical science doesn't make it any less miraculous, because 30 years ago she wouldn't still be alive. And I think about my aunt who was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's been gone over 20 years now. She lived for 10 years with breast cancer, like 30 years ago. And what did they do with breast cancer then? They